Hey everybody, Clay Archer, CEO DPC Technology. You might be able to tell by the huge stack of controllers in front of me that today we're going to compare all the different Unifi NVR products and which one might be right for you. In our business, we get asked a lot what controller you should buy for your Protect instance. And while the same version of Protect runs on all the different units, there are differences in each different unit. I personally use the Unifi Pro, the UDM Pro Max, and the Cloudkey Gen2 Plus on a daily basis. I also have UNVR, which is what we used before we upgraded the UNVR Pro, and my UDM Pro that I used before I used the UDM Pro Max. We're also going to compare the Dream Wall and the Dream Router. I don't have a lot of personal experience with that, but we're going to say which instances those are the right unit for you. And just to note, the Cloudkey Gen2 Plus is in the optional rack mount unit here. So without any further mumbling, I'm going to jump into the software. I'm going to show you my 3-step process to designing a Protect system and choosing the right NVR for you. All right, so you've decided you want to use Unifi Protect as your security camera system, but there's 8 units out there that you can run as NVRs. Actually, there's 10 if you stack some of the options. So how do I choose which one's right for me? So the way I would start is if it's not really obvious, like, there are the cases where you just want to put in a nanny cam or a dog cam or a front door cam or a back door cam, and then it's pretty easy. Well, you can skip this step. But for most people, you may say, hey, where do I want cameras? How many cameras do I need? And a good way to figure all that out is to jump into Design Center. I've done a full video on Design Center before, so I'll leave a link in the description down below. But we'll jump into it real quick to show you what it looks like, and you can decide whether this step is right for you. So you can see here, I've imported a floor plan for DPC Technology here, and I have put all of our cameras out along here. So this is a great way to decide how many cameras you want, where do you want to put them, what their field of view is going to be. I mean, obviously you can do some other things here. You can put your Wi-Fi and your cabling and a bunch of other stuff in here. But just for the basic design, if you're doing more than 2 or 3 cameras, it's nice to kind of put them up here. It's worth the exercise because you'll see things like, I've got a little kick out in my soffit here. Can I see around it? Or, is this the right place to put it? Or should I put it right on the corner? Or, it's really nice, and you can adjust things here. You can adjust which way the camera's pointing. So first of all, I would kind of, rough sketch out what I needed. So get a shopping list of what you really need as far as cameras go. Obviously you can shop cameras there and see, if I use a 360 camera or if I, use a turret versus something that's wider or something that's a tele. You can check all that out and then decide what makes most sense in your space. So that's step number 1. Let's get a good design together of how many cameras we need, where we're going to put them. So step number 2 from there is I would go into, there's 2 resources here, and one is updated right now and one I don't believe is updated. So if you haven't checked out my Protect 4.0 video, I'll leave a link down in the description or pop out on the screen here. You can check that out. But one of the cool features of the new 4.0 release is that it more efficiently uses your cameras, so you get more capacity out of an existing unit, which is awesome. So you had a unit that would do 10 cameras and now it'll do 12 cameras or whatever. So this list here, and I'll leave a link down in the description as well, is the supported camera limits. So you can see here for the different machines, and we'll go through these. I mentioned before, there's 8 of them. There's really 10 of them if you stack the UNVR and the UNVR Pro. So you have the UDR, which is the Unifi Dream Router. You have the Unifi Dream Machine Pro, UDM Pro Max, UDM Pro SE. You've got the Unifi Dream Wall. You've got the Cloudkey Gen2 Plus. You've got the UNVR and the UNVR Pro. And you can stack the UNVR. You can stack 2 UNVRs or 2 UNVR Pros. And here you can see the limits of the number of cameras that you can use with them. So this is really handy once you figured out how many cameras you're going to use, reference to come back and say, okay, I want to do 8 AI Pros. Well, so you can tell right now, those being 4K cameras, you cannot do a Unifi Dream Router would not be the right thing for you, and nor would the Unifi Dream Wall. But everything else could run that. But if you wanted to go more than 8 cameras, you would be stuck to just the Max, the UNVR, and the UNVR Pro. So once you've got your grocery list, this is a great resource to come in and take a look at. They also have a very handy calculator it's really awesome, but I don't think this has been updated for the 4.0 just yet, but I'm going to put it in here because by the time you're watching this, this may be a feature that works for you. So you can see all the different devices, and they're all listed up here. You can go back and forth and kind of scroll through them. You can look at each one. So let's just say we had a Pro Max. You can run Protect, Talk, and Access all on that device, and you can crank up the number of things that you're doing here, and then you can see what things, what you can do. So really, if you maxed out the UDM Pro Max is a pretty incredible machine. If you maxed out the network, you maxed out the talk, you maxed out the access, I can't do anything that as far as cameras go because I'm over my limits on everything else. It'll let you put it on there, but you can see I've exceeded capacity because I've gotten up here into the yellow, which in this case would probably really be the red. So it's really nice because you're able to kind of take a look at these machines that do more than just one thing and see how I can balance everything, because everybody's particular case will be different. Some people will not use talk at all or access, and they just have a few access points on their network. And so they've got all these resources to throw in all the cameras, right? So this is probably a pretty healthy spot to be in here. You got 15 cameras, you're at 60% of capacity. You really want some overhead here, so you don't ever really kind of want to get up into that yellow. So this is pretty nice. And I can, I've got some room here to add more access points and VPN and, turn on IPS and all that kind of stuff. So you can see by the time you do this, it does use resources. But this is a really kind of a cool way to kind of dynamically look at all the ones individually and see what you can do, on ones that won't do certain things. So like the UDR will only do 3 different apps at once. So you can't do all 4 apps on it at the same time, but you can turn one of them off and turn the other one on. It's just limited to 3 apps at a time. In the UNVR, it does not have network and or talk. So you can kind of go through here and see all that dynamically. I'm going to go and review this here so I do a comparison of all the units, but it's just a nice dynamic way to see that all at once. But what I will show you here is, let's go to the UNVR, and I'm going to go 4K cameras. It's telling me I'm maxing out at 18. And if I go in here in the UNVR, I'm maxed out at 18. So maybe they have updated that. So that's cool. Look, it does look like they've updated it. So sweet. So I stand corrected. A couple days ago, I went through here and took a look at it, and it wasn't updated yet. So cool. So I take that back. So the capacity calculator is a super valuable resource to kind of dynamically look at what you're doing. And if you're already in the ecosystem, let's just say you have a dream router and you're using 2 or 3 cameras and you want to do an upgrade. It's a great kind of comparison to see where you are to go to where you're going to be. So I highly recommend taking a look at this. I'm super stoked that looks like they've just updated this for 4.0. So my steps so far are going to be to 1, to go into the design center, 2, to come back over to capacity, and let's just look and see kind of what fits the bill for what we're looking at. So those are my 2 steps here. So let's jump in, and I'm just going to really quickly talk about use case scenarios for the different devices. Like I said before, this is a balancing act. So some of these devices do a ton of things. Some of these devices only do certain things. So it really depends on your needs and how much you want to be able to scale this in the future. So let's start off at the low end here, and let's just say you already have a dream router. I don't know if I would go out and buy a UDR planning to do protect on it. The UDR is a neat little device, but if I was buying it to do protect, I would have to know in my head that, okay, I'm just going to put maybe 2 cameras, 1 at the front door, 1 at the back door, or I'm gonna have a pet cam and an AD cam, or I want 4 or 5 little SD cams around, wireless SD cams around the house, and make it super easy. For that install, I think the UDR is a perfectly good option there. It does run talk, protect, access, and network. All of those things. It does your routing. Again, it can't run all 4 of those things at once. So if you're going to use talk and access, you're probably going to need to go to a bigger device or a different device. At $199, this is a great little router, but it's kind of entry into the system here. The next one I'm going to talk about is the Dreamwall. It is another one that I don't have a lot of experience with either. It's a very kind of niche product that is going to be designed to run your whole house system. So it does have some more capacity than the Dream Router does. So you can put 4 4K cameras on it, or 7 2Ks, or 12 HD cameras around the house. And I forgot to mention on the UDR, these both have 128 gigabyte SSDs internally. The Dreamwall has an extra 16 gigabyte MMC, but they also have external SD cards, so you could put an SD card and record to it as well. So recording and retention is really going to depend on the size of your SD card here. You can get cheap, pretty big SSD cards. Obviously, expandability is decent here, but this isn't intended to be like the rest of these units where they're a little bit more commercial grade, where you're going to be able to put a regular hard drive in it and have capacities up into the 20 terabyte ranges. So anyways, those are the UDR and the UDW. Again, I don't have a lot of experience with either of them. I think they're both kind of, probably you're adding the Protect as an add-on to wanting the router or all the functionality of the Dreamwall. But those two options are there, and obviously they're a little bit more home device than the rest of them that we're going to cover. So the next one I've got is the Cloudkey Gen2 Plus. We've been putting these in for a long time. They surprisingly hit way above their weight. They are nice little devices. Typically, we use them for to be a Cloudkey controller there to run the network. This is a great little device. It does come with a 1 terabyte hard drive installed, and it is pretty easily serviceable. So you can obviously upgrade that to 4, 6, 8 terabytes. It's a 2.5-inch drive, so it's not going to have the huge drives that some of the other devices are going to have. But this is a great kind of starter device for a small business. So its camera capacity is very similar to the UDMs. Not the UDM Max, but the UDM Pro and the UDM Pro SE. So you're going to get 8 4K cameras, 14 2K cameras, or 24 HD cameras, which I find is enough to run almost any small business. Obviously, you're going to have to plan and match there if you're going to go above 8 cameras. Typically in our installs, we're not using all 4K cameras. So when you mix and match it, this little Cloudkey can handle a lot of cameras. One thing to mention though on the specs here on the Cloudkey is a much, obviously the processor is a lot less than these other devices. It's not as good at multitasking as a UDM is going to be. So just be cautious. If you're going to put, 40 access points on this thing and really drive it hard, it is going to start to show the effects of that quicker than a UDM is. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to jump over into the capacity chart, and there is an asterisk by the Cloudkey Gen2 Plus. It says, assumes the G2 Plus is dedicated to Unifi Protect only. If it's running Unifi network, your maximum limit will be lower. It just doesn't have the processing power that the UDMs have. So, you take that for what it's worth. I will tell you that as a standalone unit, just running a few apps and running Protect, it has been awesome for us. We have it in a lot of offices. The one drawback for it, and this is going to be the same thing with the UDMs, is there's only one drive. So if your drive fails, and these small drives, it's not a huge percentage, but they do fail. So beware of that. There is no redundancy on your recording. So if you need the recordings in there, you must have them, and it's absolutely failure is not an option. It may not be the best device for you. But if you're running a small business or have an office or a home where you want to run quite a few cameras and you don't really care if if you had a failure on the hard drive, it wouldn't be the end of the world. This is a great little unit. And I forgot to mention the price is $199, which is a really, really good deal for NVR. So that brings us to the UDMs. We have UDM Pro at $379. We have UDM SE at $499 and the UDM Pro Max at $599. You can see the camera capacity of UDM Pro and UDM SE is very similar. So if you're looking just at the perspective of Protect and don't really care about the other features of the SE, well, obviously, then the UDM Pro is the better choice here. It's less expensive by $120, and it does pretty much all the same things as far as cameras are concerned. So there is one small difference in it. There is an internal 128 gigabyte SSD internal to it, but as far as like the drive bays, they both have one drive bay. You can put the biggest spinning disk you want in there, and so your experience is probably going to be pretty similar from a Protect perspective between the two of them. And that brings us to the UDM Pro Max. A lot of people are going, well, what is the UDM Pro Max doing for me? And this is where you can really see the difference between the Pro, the SE, and the Pro Max. Obviously, you're going from 8 4K cameras to 15, 14 2K cameras to 25, and 24 HDs to 50. So you can really see where the processing power of the UDM Pro Max is kicking into high gear here. The other really killer feature, and I mentioned before, is you're going to get some fault tolerance on the hard drive. So you're going to put 2 hard drives in this. They have to be identical. They're going to be in a mirror. But if one fails, the other one's just going to kick in and it's going to alert you, and you're going to be able to replace that drive bay and just keep going. So if you are in a larger business where you're going to run more devices and you're going to have more cameras and you need fault tolerance, I think the UDM Pro Max is the way to go. And at $599, I think that's a really screaming value. So all the products I've already mentioned run Unifi Network, Unifi Protect, Unifi Talk, and Unifi Access. The next 2 products, the UNVR and the UNVR Pro, only run Protect and Access. You can't run Network or Talk on them. So these are going to be the Protect-centric devices. And these are typically for people that may already have one of the other devices, but their Protect install is getting bigger and they want it to stand on its own. So they don't need routing. They don't need, all those other features that you get in the all-in-one units that I've mentioned so far, but you want capacity, and you want lots of capacity. So the UNVR is a 4-bay unit, and the UNVR Pro is a 7-bay unit. Almost everything in them is identical except for the capacity of the hard drives. So what you're getting in the UNVR is 18 HD cameras, and what you're getting in the UNVR Pro is 24 HD cameras. And you can stack these units, meaning you connect 2 of them together for 1 instance of Protect and expand that by 2. So for the UNVR, if you got 2 of them, you get 36. For the UNVR Pro, if you stack 2 of them, you get 48. And that gives you the ability to really expand the number of cameras that you're able to put on the system. So, for the UNVR Pro stacked, you can get 140 HD cameras, which is a lot of cameras. Probably more than you want to manage in any one instance of Protect anyways. I will tell you our evolution here at DPC is we started on a Cloudkey Gen2 Plus, we moved to a UNVR, and as we grew, we moved to a UNVR Pro, and now we're going to stack 2 UNVR Pros. That's a nice solid progression there. And that was over, many years of using the system. So you can see here, you've got, all the way from like a home unit with UDR, where you're going to put a couple cameras on it, all the way up to, putting over 100 cameras on a couple of stacked UNVR Pros. For those of you that are, looking at drives and drive capacities, you can get your drives directly from Unifi. So we do a lot of upgrades on the Gen 2 Pluses. We do a lot of 4 terabyte drives. I'll put a link to the drives that we use here at DPC Technology. Also the drives that we use in our NVR and our NVR Pros. Future Clay here. I just wanted to jump in real quick and give a couple of real world examples. Obviously with the UDM Pro Max and the UNVR and the UNVR Pro, we're getting, some fault tolerance. We're getting multiple drives. But the real reason to go to the UNVR and the UNVR Pro is that we get these big discs, multiple discs. So with the UNVR, we get 4 discs, and with the UNVR Pro, we get, depending on how you set them up, you're going to get longer storage. And obviously on top of that, you could stack multiple of them to get even longer storage. But I wanted to give a couple real world cases, my instances. And so I've got 102 terabytes of storage. I'm right now running 14 cameras and 2 display ports, but over time that varies a lot. You guys see I test a lot of different stuff. So I could be running as many as 25 cameras. I could be running as few as 14 is probably, right now it's probably my minimum, but I'm getting 6 months of recording on that. So that's a real world use case scenario that's recording all the time on all the cameras. So they obviously make bigger than 18 terabyte hard drives now, so you could probably get even more than that. But 6 months, it seems like a reasonable amount of time for me, and probably a little bit of overkill for most. So that is, that's a UNVR Pro. Obviously you can go and put these into the calculator and see what it's estimating, but I wanted to give you some real world examples. So the other example I want to show you is, this is actually my mother's house in New Hampshire, and this is a Cloudkey Gen2 Plus with the stock 1 terabyte hard drive in it, giving us 897 gigabytes of storage. And we're running 2 G4 Pros here, and we are getting roughly 9 days. So this is 2 4K cameras, getting 9 days. So you can, obviously for the Cloudkey Gen2 Plus, obviously this Cloudkey Gen2 Plus, like I said before, is hitting above its weight. I'm really not anywhere near its capacity, and great cameras, great quality. I'm recording all the time and I'm getting 9 days, which I think is a pretty appropriate amount of time for most people at their house. So I just wanted to give you a couple real world examples. Obviously use the calculator. It will get you in the ballpark, but I wanted to show you what my use case has been in a couple of different situations. So to wrap it all up here, my 3 steps would be to 1, use Design Center to kind of map out the cameras that you're going to use, where you're going to use them, your use case. So step 2 is going to be to go to the product comparison chart or the calculator, and let's see which devices fit in that range. And step 3 is probably just to go and shop each one of them and look and see which features do I need. If I need routing and if I'm going to replace my router, then probably one of the UDMs is probably the sweet spot here. For me, I really think that the UDM Pro and the UDM Pro Max are really the 2 sweet spots for Protect. If I don't need that, if I already got my own router and I'm just looking to get into Protect, I think the Cloudkey Gen2 Plus is really awesome as well. But if you're deploying a huge deployment and you need to be able to scale it, I think the NVRs are the way to go. Depending on the size of your installation, you could start with UNVR or an UNVR Pro, and then stack a second one as you grew out the installation. So that's the way I would attack the problem. I put up some questions in the Facebook and Reddit forums, and I got a lot of useful feedback on it, and thank you for everybody that replied. A lot of it was about processing power and processing speed. The problem with that is I feel like everybody's installation is a little bit different. Having a bunch of customers on these, I will see people present with issues that have to do with capacity as a whole. So my advice to everybody is to overbuild your system a little bit. Like if you're looking at a UDM SE and you've got what is that, $499 in your budget, it wouldn't be the world's worst plan to spend the $100 extra, get the UDM Pro Max, have that overhead so that if you do add stuff in the future, you're able to run it without any issue. Obviously, these are the investment at the core of any Protect system. So getting this right, being able to scale it, it's worth a little bit of legwork up front to make sure you're getting the right things. If you have any comments or questions, please put them down below. As always, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video.